guys, welcome to Purple Angles. I'm Stephanie,
And I'm Natalie.
where we bring back healthy conversation.
And the beauty of divergent opinions.
Today's podcast is about spirituality and ego. So we'll dive into the subject. And Natalie, can you please start? Give us what you think about spirituality. Are you a spiritual being? Tell us a bit more about this.
Yes, I would love to. So the reason actually I'm going to share with people why we decided to speak about that today. We see, I am a very spiritual person and I know you are as well. And those are conversations we often have, but I think it's also becoming very trendy. And it's something that we see often in the media and social media, people talking about different experiences they have with spirituality, all the different, exercises that are out there. So we want to kind of have the conversation about what that means, what it means to us. And when it comes to me, if I'm spiritual, the answer is definitely yes. I'm also religious, so I think it somehow goes hand in hand. So I'm someone who for me, what spirituality is, if you ask me, like, what's the definition of spirituality for me? It's actually a connection with a higher power. And if I would have to say it in a few words, now, connection with a higher power, and at the same time, I know it might sound kind of odd to say that, but it's a deep connection with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, that's what spirituality is. It is a very personal, intimate relationship with God, spirit, life, however you want to call it. For me, it's God. And what that relationship means within myself and how that affects me personally. So that's what spirituality is for me. What is it for you?
Beautiful definition. You stole the words out of my mouth. So it is, for me, there's also the self-growth that I add to it, but add to it like intuition and understanding that there's something beyond that, faith that there's things we just can't explain. So you call it God, spirit, the universe, everyone has their own definition. So the term is really irrelevant rather than that connection and understanding that there's things that are beyond our control. And I do believe in that sense. And I call it energy sometimes and all of that. And again, that self-growth, that deepening understanding and becoming who you are, for me, is part of spirituality. And it's part of all the, like, that's where all the activities or all the exercises lead to or are supposed to lead to. It's really having that deep understanding of who you are, that connection with yourself, that intuition, and understanding all of that. So for me, it's a process, it's a long-term journey. It's not just a one thing. It's like forever. You're always going to learn. You're always going to have new challenges, experiment different things. And it's how you're going to assess that, how you're going to manage this, what it is bringing you in terms of growth, in terms of guidance, in terms of where it's letting you be. And spirituality has brought a lot of peace and solace into my life in terms of surrendering and understanding and trusting it. So it has brought a lot of benefits to my day-to-day, to my being, to the way I interact with people, to the way that I understand my own self, to a lot of different things. But again, I do see that trend, and I've seen some extremes also in terms of spirituality, and this is what we want to bring in terms of subject and that limitations, because we're seeing the trends also with different drugs and ayahuasca and all of these rituals and shamanism and therapies and a lot of this. And there's some good in it. Some people have benefited from it. Some people have detrimental experiences from it. So it's trying to find that little balance in that spiritual world.
Mm-hmm.
So
I think, I don't know if it's because I'm seeing it more often, or is it because it is more kind of present currently around us. I do see a lot of people, whether people that I know personally or in my environment, or that have tried different types of spiritual practices. I feel like it's becoming very trendy, and I'm always kind of fearful of what trends can kind of create.
Yes.
And we see that, and I know I'm seeing that in around me, and on social media and in the environment that we live in. I would love for you to share with our listeners the different types of spiritual practices that are out there? Because I know you've tried a lot.
Yeah.
I've had my share too.
Yeah.
But I would love for us to speak a little bit about that and share with people what are we referring to and what are the different practices that are out there. Maybe speak a little bit of them, and
Yeah.
then I think I would be happy to share kind of like my opinion on how
Yeah.
I'm navigating this
Yeah.
and how I feel people are navigating this today.
Yeah. Well, spiritual, we often hear the trends of like, it started a lot with yoga. We started seeing this a lot. Like I started doing yoga when I was 16, so that's like a couple of years ago, but it became a trend, and then people started seeing benefits, and then there's meditation that came in, and then people are like, I'm spiritual, and then the drugs came in, and psilocybin came in, and different crystals came in, and shamanism, and speaking with different spiritual teachers, and going to these temazcal and rituals, and communicating with the spirit. So the list is huge in terms of trying new things, and I'm an explorer. I love trying new things out of experience. It doesn't mean that like I did the thing with the crystals where you sleep on a bed and you have all the chakras, and because I was so curious, I'm like, what am I gonna feel like? What does happen? So I've experienced it, and it's funny because like it shows you a lot of the power of the mind. So if you want something positive out of it, you will get something positive out of it, which is not a bad thing. That's the thing. Like it's not a bad thing. When it becomes, in my opinion, a little bit scary, it's when you step that boundary and you don't have a safe environment, and you consider everything as safe, as even taking these drugs, which are herbs. You consider them as safe, and that you're not going to experience different things and not going to possibly hallucinate. So it's the practices of that lead to different like different growth processes. Let's put it that way. A lot of people, because yes, when you meditate, there's different biochemical changes that happen within your body and your mind. You're able to control different things. You're able to understand your thoughts. There's changes that are happening. You're changing perspectives. You're seeing different things. Same thing with yoga. It's putting you like increasing your awareness with your body, understanding why you're reacting. So it has some positive outcomes. Now, if you practice yoga, are you spiritual? Not necessarily, because you could just clearly just do it for the physical benefits and not have that self-growth and that day-to-day practice of understanding your thoughts and understanding the relationship with your body and understand why are you feeling like this, and really diving in. So for me, spirituality is a lot of dive in, a lot of going into, and a lot of discovery of who you are and letting go of all these misbeliefs. And so it's a journey. It's an ongoing journey, and with different things. And when you start getting into these paths and doing different things, you will start experimenting different things in terms of reality. So initially you're going to start, if you meditate, at some points, I felt it after 2 months, for example, I'm like, oh, I just had a high, like something happened that is different after several days of practice. And then you start doing other things, and then you start meditating for longer, and then you add different frequencies and music, and you go do these chakra thing, and you do Reiki, and you do. So I did all of those different things out of like curiosity and experience, and I just like to test. But I also went a little bit over to some extent where I did start seeing some things, and I'm like, oh, and you start believing at some point that this is the right path, because like this is different. So you start having this ego. So this is where we bring the ego to play in terms of spirituality, and you're like, oh, so this is the right thing, because I'm starting to see things that other people don't, so I'm superior. So I'm having this extra sensory perception, these things that I'm feeling, I'm seeing, like it must be that I am this being that is so different from other humans. So there's a lot of things that, and this is, I think, where the trend is starting to push a lot of people, where you're like, hey, come back to earth. You're like, bring back these people to living in society, because it's easy to lose and to go and to start like believing that the right way to live is to just stay in a forest and meditate for hours, and that's life, and that's peace, and that's the ultimate. But is that really it, or is that the image of what shamanism is that someone influencing you in a spiritual journey? So there's a lot of things that are not taken into consideration, a bit like religion. So everything that is culty for me is not is not right. It's not what it's supposed to be. The whole goal, in my opinion, of spirituality and even religion is to really help you reconnect with you and your own, as you said it like so well, your intimate relationship with God, universe, or whatever, and yourself. So anything that is trying to make you take a path or making you believe that that's what you have to be, in my opinion, is completely deviating you from what you should be doing.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd like to hear your opinion. I spoke a lot about like different things.
No, I appreciate you sharing this. And I know you've had a lot of different experiences. We've shared that together. And I was happy that you shared kind of with people how the different, experiences or practices that are out there. And I think the most common ones that people know about are definitely yoga, meditation. And I think initially when you start looking into these things, first it could be out of curiosity. I think a lot of people are curious to see what is the impact of, we've heard, of the positive impact of meditation and of yoga, and you want to try to see if that can apply to yourself, right? I think it initially starts with wanting to better your life and finding ways to kind of connect with a higher being or connect with yourself, find that kind of inner calm, inner peace that those practices usually provide when done correctly and when done safely, for sure. I think there's a lot of benefits and a lot of them. And I've done Reiki, I've done different types, I've done retreats. I did the Temazcal, for example, and that was not one that I actually enjoyed at all. And I'm happy we're speaking a little bit earlier about boundaries and kind of finding your way through that. Yeah. I think where the danger is in a way nowadays when it comes to that is that you start going onto that journey, and then of course you're going to meet people that are going through the same path, trying different things, experiencing different things, feeling the benefits from them. And then you start kind of embarking into this and wanting to do the next thing and the new thing, and then doing the chakra work or doing the shadow work or doing having meeting with a shaman or having doing a silent retreat or doing a meditation retreat, or I can go on and on and on, of course, about all these different practices. And there's beauty in that. I think there's a lot of value, and I think when they are done properly and safely and for the right reasons, they can bring a lot of peace and benefit to your life. And that's what ultimately the goal is. Now, where the danger lies is that I find that nowadays people are becoming a little bit, I feel there's like this need of wanting to do everything. And as if you're not doing it all, you haven't reached like this higher level. When the basics of all those spiritual practices is feeling good within yourself, finding that inner peace, and finding that how you can bring that to the world around you. That to me is what the purpose of all this is. It's not another competition. It's not another, have I touched, have I done every single, exercise out there? Have I done every single practice out there? Oh, if I have, that means, I'm like at this higher level. And then you even hear about the levels, right? There's like different levels, and if you've reached the 5th level, that's when you like reach the highest, the highest kind of spiritual practice. And I'm not against that. I think there some people actually truly enjoy doing that and find peace while doing that. And I think it does help a lot of people, especially like for your mental health. I think it can be very, very beneficial, those practices. It's just being careful how you use them and being true and authentic to yourself. Because I don't believe, that's my personal belief, I don't believe every single practice out there is for everybody. Like some of them you're going to do or you're going to try to do and like it won't feel right. You won't feel good doing it. Then stop. Don't push yourself to do it because you have to do it, or, oh God, I have to do that one. Or if I didn't do it, that means I'm not like part of the group, or I wasn't able to do it. It becomes more like a competition than what it's supposed to be, actually, which is something to help you grow, to help you to kind of, again, find that inner peace. And it's listening to your body, listening to your soul when you're doing these things, and finding what works for you, not necessarily what's out there, and becoming, that like superhuman when it comes to like spirituality and being the best one doing this. I think that's where the danger is at the moment. I'm saying danger, but like what the risk is at the moment with all the current practices. I'm not sure that everybody listens to their, boundaries or are placing any boundaries. And that's when it can become dangerous. And I'm happy you spoke about, the medication, or let's say, more side of it, like when you're talking about psilocybin or ayahuasca or all that, because there has been a lot of issues that have happened with that, and I do think we want to bring awareness to that today. So I would be happy if you could speak a little bit more about what potential dangers can be when using those products inappropriately.
I mean, you do go through a lot during, and everyone has a different experience. I've personally have not tried it, but I've seen a lot of people opened up to me. A lot of people told me that they almost felt bad saying that they had a horrible experience, because everyone's like, oh, it healed me. And then they're like, I had a trauma from it. Yeah. And so it creates that state of like, okay, is that, so you should just question yourself. Like, is that really for me? What am I getting out of this? Why am I going this path? Is that in a safe environment? Because at the end of the day, like, the drugs are in some places, you don't even know what's necessarily in it. It's not regulated, obviously. I'm not saying it's better than pharma or not better. Like, I'm not comparing there, but it is a fact that it's not regulated. It's a mix of different things. These drugs, they do make you hallucinate, so you will experience different things. A lot of people swear by it and it healed them and it was an amazing experience. And there's different types also, like there's DMT, there's psilocybin, there's microdosing, there's ayahuasca, like that. There's a lot of different ones, and everyone has a different effect on the body. And if you're taking different medication, it could be dangerous because there's some interaction. So some people even recommend to prep before you go to the experience. So there's all sorts of knowledge surrounding these things. And it can make you be overly aware sometimes, and you're maybe not ready for that. Maybe not ready to face this at this point. So it's like a drastic shift in your reality that could happen, and sometimes it dives you in, but you were already struggling with so much that it makes it like overwhelming. And society puts it as a healing, like it's supposed to heal you, and they're like, no, it's okay if you're going through this. Like it's like, not necessarily. So it really depends. Like, everyone thinks that, not everyone, but there's this misconception about like a purging. Like everyone tries to find a definition to something next, like negative that happens. Like, oh, it's because you had too much trauma, that's why it was even more intense. Like, it's trying to justify different experiences, where sometimes it's just traumatic, and it's just not the right setting, it's not the right environment, it's not the proper components and herbs, and like you don't even know where it comes from. And some people have, again, beautiful life-saving experiences, and it saved them from where they are. So there's an extreme. The point is not saying what's good, what's bad. I'm not against it, I'm not for it, I personally, that's a personal like opinion. I don't depend on drugs or different things to heal. I don't find it's the right way for me. Some people swear by it, completely fine. Again, I'm not specifically saying like it's good or bad, but to assess if it's right for you first, understand the risks and the benefits, understand, are you going in a right environment? Are you going with the right people or alone? Do you trust the people you're going to be with? Is it like in a safe environment? If something happens, is there like healthcare support that could probably help at that point? The list could go on in the things that you should consider before even just jumping into that. And I've had a patient with microdosing psilocybin. She's like, I want to start this. I'm like, why? She's like, oh, it did me good before, and she was already unbalanced biochemically, taking different drugs and taking different things because of her health conditions. And she's like, I want to take this. Is there any interactions? I'm sure it's going to benefit. And she was having different reactions. She was getting worse, but she didn't want to believe that it was that, because she's like, no, that's supposed to do good. So there's this misconception that like, because like psilocybin is a mushroom, so it's like it does different effects in the body too. It's still a herb. It doesn't mean it's like completely safe. Same thing with like turmeric or other herbs. So there's a lot to say about this. And again, it's not to say that I'm against it. Some people, it saved their lives and they swear by it, and please, like, amazing. Just, I don't think there's enough precautions or data or understanding behind it, and I'm always not scared but precautious with trends because it's more influence than truth. So there's an influence, there's a trend, it's pushing people towards that. A lot of people are going there. They're like, and again, some people hallucinate and they believe that that's the way that it should be. And like when you hallucinate, you're actually going through a psychosis. Like you're getting yourself, and if you continue, it's not going to be nice. There's people that got hospitalized for that because they didn't know how to manage it at some point. It's hard. Like spirituality is challenging, it's difficult, and it's becoming who you are. It's already a whole challenge on its own. Like if you're adding components, it's making it harder. I don't want to put a negative point on spirituality because again, for me, it like completely it changed me a lot in a positive way. But I've been through different experiences where I'm like, oh, that's a bit too much. So boundaries. And it's super important to set those and understand and listen to yourself. You're feeling something's dangerous or you're not feeling it, like you're just cut it, just go, don't go. I mean, like listen to yourself. Like it's you don't have, there's no have to do. It's like, so it's a challenging world, but that's my take about like, that's my long parenthesis about the drugs.
The one thing I would add regarding like psilocybin and all
Yeah.
those kind of components, I think it is something we're going to see more and more often. It is becoming part of the toolbox when it comes to mental health healing, when it comes to trauma healing a lot. And we should be prepared for that. It is coming. I mean, it's something that's been, it's being studied. It has been studied for a very long time now. I know we're just starting to hear about it in the past few years, but it has been studied, and especially at the Johns Hopkins University, they do a lot of research when it comes to psilocybin. So it is becoming more and more, let's say, there's more data on it. There's more data on it. So I do think it will become part of the toolbox when it comes to mental health healing. And I agree with you. It doesn't mean that it's for everyone. And what the goal of today when we're speaking about this is just that people know about it, aware that it exists, just being careful how to use it. And I mean, I would suggest to definitely use it in a setting that's going to be, where you have healthcare professionals that are supporting you, that are guiding you through that, because it's not as simple as it looks online. It's not just, and I know microdosing has been very, very popular right now. It's very easy to find. You have to make sure the source is of quality. That's another thing that's not always guaranteed. There's nothing that's actually kind of supporting this in the environment that we're in. So it's kind of hard to know if what you're getting is actually good. And then the other thing is the setting and making sure it's a safe place to do it. There's psilocybin, we're speaking a lot about that, but there's NMDA as well that's also being more and more used for severe trauma, PTSD, and that's something that's also very up and coming. I know a lot of physicians that are using it off-label currently in very, secure, safe environments with their clients that have been kind of resistant to a lot of different therapies, whether it's, spiritual therapy or medical therapy or other types of therapies. So these things are coming out. They are going to be part of the toolbox. Definitely. It's just being aware. It's just being careful. Doing it with a healthcare professional that knows what they're doing, that are specialized in the domain, and then seeing if that could be an option for you. But it is something just to like, an extra thing to try. I'm sure I'll be okay. I want to experience it like that. It's not because it's a herb again, or because it's natural, that it's going to be safe. So I think that's the point we want to bring when it comes to that. And when it comes to spirituality and kind of doing those experiences for the sake of spirituality, this is where, again, we need to be careful. I might be repeating myself, but at the end of the day, what is spirituality? It is about finding that inner voice inside of you and being good so that you can be good to everyone around you. So do the things that make you feel good, that make you feel better, that make you feel like you've grown, that you can bring good, positive things to everyone around you, that you can be of service to people around you. The goal is not to become this higher person. That's not the goal of spirituality, in my opinion. Maybe for some people, that's what it is. It's going up those steps and then becoming like this, I don't know, like this God. And, when it comes to spirituality, but at the end of the day is knowing how to be a better person to yourself and to everyone around you. And the only way to do that is by staying on this earth and actually applying that, and not just wanting to go up and up and up in the different levels and then staying there.
Yeah.
Some people might find peace by doing that. I think that there are some people that are doing that, and that's what they look for, and good for them if they can use that for good. But I think most people currently are just kind of experiencing things and trying to see what, how they can get better at it. And if that's like this kind of new challenge of becoming the superior being, because you have reached those, those levels of spirituality. I think it's important not to lose track of why initially you were doing this. And I think most people that are doing that, it's because they were looking for some guidance. They were looking to kind of find that peace. They are looking to find that balance within themselves. So there's a lot of healing that's going on when you're doing this. And that's what I think the focus should be on. And it is, again, as I said earlier, it is an intimate, personal experience and journey.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily about, being better than everyone else that's going through their own. We each have our own journey, and it's finding your way, your own personal way, taking the things that work for you, and then just being a better person because of it.
Yeah. I'm all for like experimenting different things, as long as you know your limits and
exactly
how to say no, and really listening to yourself, and like understanding that if you try something, it doesn't work, it doesn't mean because it's a trend that you should continue. You should stop. So really focusing on the listening to yourself. And people come from a state often of vulnerability, or a state of looking for things to help them heal, when they go into a spiritual journey and want to grow and become better humans and bring more awareness, which is a beautiful thing. So it's not about putting this whole concept or practice in some space, and I don't think that's what we're saying, but more of really understanding that yes, there are changes that are happening. Yes, it will bring awareness. It's not a competition, it's between you and yourself. It's not about how you're perceived. There's, in my opinion, there's no levels. There's no the goal is not for everyone to become a guru, or to have become a spiritual coach, or so it's really about becoming the best version, and we're all unique and have that uniqueness, and that's where it's going to lead you to understand what is that uniqueness about you. And the more you work, the more you're getting to understand, but it's a lifelong journey.
100%.
So thank you for sharing.
Thank you to you for sharing your experiences and your point of view on this. It was a very nice conversation to have.
And if you want more, there is a book I wrote called Spiritual Psychosis, which I dive into a little bit of these things. So don't hesitate to check it out. We'll leave the link. And thank you so much for tuning in. Subscribe, and we'll see you at the next podcast.